Welcome all. Thank you for joining us. Episode 4 of That's How We Do. Today's episode, we will ask, how will legalization and technology change sports handicapping? Brought to you by odds.com. Shout out to the cappers joining us in the chat. Walter, Scott, Rye, Kate, Carlos Perroge, Robert Gilmore in the house. We have special guests. I'm very excited about introducing them. Let me tell you a little bit about today's show. New Jersey Supreme Court victory in May 2018 states that any state that wishes can legalize sports betting. 18 states have legalized sports betting. 30 states are still in the process. Idaho and Wisconsin have not announced any bills devoted to sports betting legalization, and Utah's anti-gambling laws are into the state's constitution, so it won't be happening there. What that means is it's big business, baby. It is big business. New Jersey, let's pull up these numbers right away. New Jersey, which led the push for legalization, the public has placed more than $6 billion worth of bets since it was legalized 20 months ago. $50 million in new betting-specific taxes for the state. Let's look at a small state like West Virginia. 800,000 worth of online bets when they started in August. In 1 month, 800,000. In January, 24.6 million. There's only 1.8 million people in West Virginia. That's $15 per person in West Virginia in January alone. In Canada, we're behind. In Canada, we are lacking. We're not allowed single event sports wagering. It sucks. We have online companies like Bodog, Bet365 that are registered offshore in Malta, Gibraltar. And we have Sports Interaction, which is in the Mohawk territory just outside of Montreal. We still don't have single bet wagering. Will it be coming soon? I hope so. In this episode, we talk about legalization and then technology, and how the two go hand in hand in shaping the future of our industry. And I'm so excited about this show. We got Shy Archie in the house. Paco Healy ready to go. Says, hey now, what's up? What's up? Feels good to catch the show. I can't wait for our normal sports slate. Glad to see you guys. Bam, bam. There's Jordan Kane in the house. Big Ragoo, Connor McLaughlin, Dennis Garcia. And it has been far too long since I've had the pleasure of being live with them. It's been far too long. We've done some UFC videos together, but now he's finally live for the low baggers. He's live back in action. There's Prediction Guy. There's that young chillionaire. Let's bring in the man himself, the legend, Loshak in the house. Pete, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I got a bunch of Nicaragua basketball plays going right now. I'm happy to say that I beat the line moves by a mile on those plays, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm doing fine.
There he is. Man, I missed that. I missed that facial hair. It's one thing when I see it through the screen. It was so nice when I could just peer into that mustache right beside me.
Oh, and there's a new thing I'm doing now. Instead of like drinking coffee or whatever, I'm just fucking eating the beans straight up right here. Just fucking eating them. I'm like, it started when people were like, well, why did, I'm like, why am I going to put coffee? I mean, like sugar and milk and all that. So I'm just going to drink it black. And that was a good decision. And then about a month ago, I was like, why am I even going to cook it at all? I'm just going to eat the beans straight. And here I am.
It's borderline brilliant.
Sorry, right? I didn't mean, we're supposed to talk about
No, you're going right. See, you go right to the point, man.
Yeah.
Skip all the steps.
Exactly.
Chew on those beans, man, and beat Nicaraguan basketball. But Nicaraguan, what sport in Nicaragua?
Basketball. I've been doing very well in that league. I'm not going to quote any numbers because I haven't posted them publicly, and people just think I'm lying. It's fine, so I'm just not going to quote them. But I've been doing very well in that league, especially with totals. I definitely took over 147.5 in the Carrazzo game. I think it moved a little bit. It's like 149. I don't know where it is now, but definitely hit that one. And I hit another side that moved by like 10 points, so that's not bettable. But yeah.
Mr. Gogster, whom we both love and cherish very much, he wrote his first KBO article yesterday.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
He wrote the article under 5 at minus 105. Within 3.5 hours, the first 5 under 5 was minus 142.
No shit. Really? Very nice.
Go,
Very nice.
sir. A lot of people giving you love here in the chat. There's Guillermo Zertucci. Dennis Garcia screaming Peter. Carlos Peroche screaming Peter Loshak. Connor McLaughlin says Loshak. All is good. Pete alive. Producers guy says.
Shout out to everyone. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly check to see what the line is right now to see if it's bettable. I know we're supposed to be talking about the future of sports betting. Don't mean to put us up, but go ahead. If I figure that there's always room for jokes and for positive EV picks.
Let's see how bad you beat the line. And also, we have a question while you're seeing that. Dennis Garcia said, and this has been asked during many shows I've been a part of. Did you ever finish the gambling song?
I've started like 20 of them. Which one's he talking about?
The song to Landslide.
Oh no, but I'll finish that tonight if people want to hear it. I'll finish it. I'll do it tonight.
They want to hear it. They want to hear it desperately. They want to. Okay, he's all hopped up on coffee beans, chewing them as we speak.
Yeah.
He's also going to tell us how big he beat this line in Nicaraguan basketball. Let us know how bad you beat that line, and also, I'm going to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
From Peter to Peter Loshak. How will legalization in America affect the offshore books?
Well, we're all just guessing here, right? Your guess is as good as mine. I think obviously, the truth is that probably it's, the death knell. It might not drive the offshore books down to zero, and it might take a while, but it can't be good. Just because the average, sports bettor feels more comfortable with things being legal and with the conveniences that can provide. The main issue is ease of deposit. Much easier to deposit with the way it was. You could do it 20 years ago or 15 years ago, or whenever it was, when you just use credit cards and stuff like that. So I think that obviously for the time being, you can get much better odds at the offshore books than at a lot of the state sanctioned books, especially in some cases like Montana. There's some I've read about some states that open with like 40-cent lines and stuff like that. But eventually they'll all get it roughly right, and I don't know how long it's going to be before and how fast the reduction in the presence will be, and it might not go down to zero, but it's in general I think not good for the offshore books.
We are going to beat up this.
That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong for sure.
We want to hear your opinion.
Yeah.
Pete, do you liken this anything like what's happened with the legalization of weed? When weed became legal, all of the dealers thought, oh shit, we're going to be out of business. But in fact, almost none of them are, because their weed is better than the government weed. Their weed is cheaper than the government weed. All the dealers are still rolling strong because they're able to give it at a discount. What do you think about that analogy to what the offshore books are going to be able to give odds at?
I mean, it's a tough analogy, of course, because ultimately sports betting is bad for you while weed is good for you. So they're two separate, things. No, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily a good analogy to make. I've never been into weed or the weed, legalization market, so I'm not exactly sure what the comparisons are. But my assumption is that, I really don't know actually, because I haven't been following, weed legalization at all. I just know that, when you go to all of a sudden in Las Vegas, when I went there a few years ago, all of a sudden there were stores openly selling it. But I really can't answer that because I'm not.
And they sell good. The Vegas stores, a lot of them sell fine product. The issue is the price.
I do think that there's one vague comparison, which is that something that was seen as, illicit and degenerate, will now be seen as at least a little bit less so, if not a lot. I'm not exactly sure.
And that's an interesting thing that you bring up, because we're going to get into exactly that throughout this show. You've seen legend number one. Let's bring on legend number two, the big Ragoo in the house.
Peter, how you doing, Petey?
I'm doing okay. I'm just trying to log into my I'm using a different computer here, so I forgot my password. So I'm trying to log into one of my accounts to check the lines here. But I'm doing good. How are you doing, Ragoo?
I'm doing good. Listen, I missed the coffee bean segment, but I was going to ask, where's those coffee beans from? Are they from Colombia? They maybe have a little something extra in them.
Yeah, I don't put that fine point on it yet, but no, I do request the ones with the highest caffeine content for sure.
Yeah.
And yes, this is actually a Colombian roast. Yes, it does happen to be a Colombian roast. Absolutely, yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Ragoo, we asked Peter how will legalization in America affect the offshore books. This will be the only time where I ask you guys the exact same question. Now, when I ask you guys different questions, both of you guys, it's not just for one person. Somebody else can jump in. But this time I ask both of you the exact same question to get us rolling. What do you think, Big Ragoo? How will legalization affect the offshore books?
Well, we know the biggest bet sport in the world is soccer, correct? And as far as it depends on the sport, I would say, but definitely a bottom line issue is going to be on the American sports, number one. Even though it's they're bet worldwide, obviously football's king, but we know soccer is probably king worldwide. The worldwide the soccer football. So the direct impact I think it's going to have. It's probably like Pete says, it's probably going to have a little bit of downward effect. It's just like Las Vegas many years ago when they started talking about, the Indian reservations opening up, table games and whatnot, different types of gambling, poker and whatnot. They said Vegas is done. And, Vegas is thriving. Every year they come out with, more casinos nationwide. Vegas, there's only going to be like one Las Vegas. But to answer your question on a global scale, they're going to be always an intricate part of sports gambling because for many years, when lines originated, they always opened up in Vegas at the Stardust. And then, Bet Chris came out with, the lines first, the overnights and whatnot. So you're always going to have that tuned in, for the markets. They're going to dictate the opening numbers. I think they still will. Just depending upon limits, what you're going to be able to get down. And that was another subject we talked about earlier. But I think as a whole, there is going to be a little bit of a downturn. And just depends on, the bigger markets. Like we know there's probably, close to 18, 20 states that we have some type of legislature passed. Not all of them are in full effect. It just depends on the type of gambling that they're able to make in those states. There's a lot of lottery type bets that you can make. Not all of them have, like New Jersey and Las Vegas. So depending on those markets, it's still, worldwide, it's still a pretty big scale. In the U.S. is probably a great portion of that. So definitely, they're going to feel the pinch to start off with.
Well, that leads us into my next question, which I will send to Peter.
Okay.
So the thing that I expect will happen is there will be a separation because of the taxation that happens in America. And Pete already brought up the 40-cent lines. And I think the legal books will start getting all of the square money, and the sharps will get we'll be using the offshore books. Squares don't care about getting the best line. They just care about having fun. And that's the only thing that sharps care about. So that leads us into question 2 for Pete. Will simply better lines keep offshores in business? Will it separate the sharp bettors and the public?
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with what you said, but that's bad for the offshore books. The books don't want the sharp guys. The books want the square guys. And I think you're absolutely right that the money that'll be most affected will be the new money, the dumbest money around, and that's the most coveted money, and that'll be the most affected, the most likely to be most money that would have gone to the offshore books in the past, and now will just go to whatever is most convenient. Lines don't matter, and I agree with your assessment, but that's another reason. There's lots of reasons why I think this is overall bad for the offshore books, and that's a huge one right there.
It is. Yeah. Simply put, it's because if all of the square money is going to the legal books, then the offshores will be kicking out more cappers, just like we heard from Conor McLaughlin. So just talking about that with Jay, he got blocked by DraftKings tonight.
Yeah,
making a bet on NASCAR.
I mean, it's been, obviously we all know it's been legal in the UK for a long time, obviously. So there is some precedent. We can look at what happened there and draw some parallels. And of course, for years there have been like ridiculous stories of people, like admitted squares who didn't know what they were doing, who happened to bet like 3 underdogs in a row and then would get banned at William Hill or someplace like that. They'd be like, what the hell happened? And, the UK books have been notoriously over paranoid when it's come to, sharp versus square action. And we're probably going to see some of that in the United States as well.
Big Ragoo, is there room for the government's cut in sports betting? Because the bookies' juice is already a big problem, and now we got to add in the government's cut.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with what the government's cut is. If you remember, it was highly spoken about when they were talking about trying to keep the integrity of the leagues honest, all that garbage, or not the integrity of the leagues, but the integrity of sports bettors with the casinos to make sure there was no funny business going on. And the leagues wanted to get their cut. And I was like, why the hell should the leagues get a cut? One, because number one, they were dead set against it from the word go. And here we go again with the government now. Now, I haven't heard a lot of stories about the government, in the news, in the media. But, I mean, for the longest time when they were talking about PASPA and trying to get it legalized, countrywide on a state-by-state basis, that the leagues wanted their cut. So I never heard anything about what the actual government's cut is and how it affects numbers. I've heard random stories, but never really delved into the actual number portion of it. But I'm sure whatever that number is, it's going to have a direct effect on the 40-cent line, 20-cent line, whatever that's going to be. And that's where the competition is going to come into play, because if you're in a state-by-state basis, you're either going to, be forced to bet offshore or bet with an illegal book, online. So it just depends on, what the state deals is. I heard some stories about Pennsylvania when they were talking about getting started, over there, that, their lines are going to be like minus 140 compared to, let's say, minus 110 in Vegas. I don't know how true that is, but whatever it is, the legislature by the state, they're going to have to argue, or the argument's going to come into play whether the business model is going to work. And I'm sure that's where the lobbyists come in when they set those systems up. So it's going to be up to the customer to decide whether it's going to support it or not. And we'll see in the long term. In the short term, I'm going to say yes, because it's new. And people, Pete was saying, the squares, they want to get down on their action. So they probably don't know better in a lot of cases. But as they get more educated to the process, then they're going to start shopping around, whether it be offshore or illegals.
Well, let's move on to predictions about, will sports gambling explode now that it's legalized? Because we're going to have all these states. We have 18 right now. Soon there'll likely be 48, and soon Canada will also have legalized sports gambling. What that has done is it's removing the stigma associated with sports gambling, I think. Let's pose this question to Pete and see what he thinks. Does legalization remove the negative stigma associated with sports gambling?
Yeah, this is just what I think. I'm definitely no expert on this, and I'm sure there are some people who've done market research who could probably give, very detailed and accurate answers to this. But I do know a little bit about human nature and the betting industry in general. I think definitely the negative stigma will be reduced at least a little bit. Certainly, even from where it was like 15 years ago, when people still thought, like when I first started becoming involved in sports betting, and I would just like meet people socially, like people would still think that meant that I was like, involved with mafia people and breaking people's legs and stuff. And now, it's obviously gotten to the point where, it's widely accepted to be a legitimate academic pursuit. So there's definitely going to be a reduction in the negative stigma, and that could actually benefit companies in terms of maybe advertising and partnerships that wouldn't have been there before. So that could be sort of a hidden benefit to the market in general. There could be finally some money coming in, not just from losing bettors, but possibly from companies that are looking to advertise or market to sports bettors, in the same way that sports books in Vegas for a long time were seen as loss leaders or break even leaders or something like that. Not necessarily, it would be okay if like a sports book just broke even as long as they were attracting customers. And we could see something similar in terms of advertising dollars if the stigma gets reduced significantly, which I think it will. So I think that's a positive. Maybe a negative is that maybe some people will get involved in it that maybe shouldn't get involved in it, but yeah, definitely the negative stigma will be reduced at least a little bit,
At least a little bit. And
no question. And possibly a huge amount.
There's other, like pornography has been legal
Right.
for a long time. But
I want to elaborate on that.
Cooler, Monday the water cooler, you guys see Debbie's dirty cornhole. It's
but there's no question that the negative associations with pornography and erotica in general compared to like from the 70s up until now. I mean, it's like a different world. So yeah, definitely there's going to be a big negative associations for sure.
And quickly, quick question, and then I've got.
You remember 70s big Ragoo, right? You're not like 25 years old.
Times Square.
Times have changed.
Hey, but let me elaborate on one thing that Pete was talking about with the stigma. Okay, so back in the day, and I'm going back until like, probably the 80s in Vegas, when it was mob rule, and then corporations got involved, and kind of like Pete was saying, it was a break-even thing for the sports books, and the casinos always had a separate entity for the sports books. Was detached from the casino as far as, the way they were being run. But then when the corporates got involved, like the Harrah's and the MGMs and stuff, when they took over the sports action, then they kind of incorporated in the whole business plan of the casino, so to speak. So they kind of legitimized it, even though it was a taboo subject, states nationwide for the corporations. They were legitimizing the aspect of the gaming model for the casino, to bring in more customers and to market the casino as a whole. Now you have corporations that are actually getting involved with the sports side of things. Like you got Bleacher Report, you got these companies that are, they have a studio inside the casino there. You got, a lot of media properties that are getting involved with these casinos. So there's a lot of partnerships going on. Major, now you got ESPN talking about numbers, live, everybody's watching games, because they have a genuine interest in the sports betting aspect of sports. That's why we all watch sports pretty much, So even though you want to say stigma, it's going to be more out in the open now, but everybody's always had the interest in it. It's just going to be more widely accepted. So I think that it has definitely brought it to the forefront, and you're going to see it expand on that going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I would even add to that, which is that, like, I think more than legalization, reduction of the negative stigma is just a little bit distasteful, but it's just, how everything is all about data science these days. And so it's, analyzing sports odds is seen as a way to, prove how smart you are, which is always something that has appealed to, dumb and smart people alike for years and years. And that's, I think that's legitimizing it even more than legalization, but legalization certainly helps. So, yeah.
Yeah, Cantor Gaming was, ex-Wall Street guys that got involved, so.
Yeah.
Great question from Jordan Kane. It's actually going to fit into a topic we're going to talk about shortly. So, Jordan, don't think we just skipped on it. We are going to be using that question here in a second. Okay, so question for Big Ragoo. What we've seen from legalization so far, and what I'm hoping to see from a sports gambling thing will be talked about in our next segment with technology. But what we've seen is that legalization is going to be, and you bring up Bleacher Report and all these companies that are comfortable now, having a studio in a casino, that it's very good for content makers. And so, and you sort of just touched on that. Is the legalization of sports gambling going to be very good for content makers and bad for sports gamblers?
I don't think it's going to be bad for sports gamblers. It's depending on whether they're gamblers or handicappers, depending upon how they get their information. But like guys like me that used to send you a video into a show on, when you guys were doing the show back in Costa Rica, it's going to elevate guys like myself, to give us opportunities to come on shows like this and build some careers that way. And then you got the guys that are kind of going to step up, let's say from you're in Pete's level, to maybe, do some in-studio work with some of the higher-up pros. So basically, I think it'll have a trickle-up effect for guys that have a genuine interest in sports. And as far as the media goes, putting product out there more mainstream, like you say, and taking the stigma out of it. You got ESPN, they have a show on now, which, I'm not going to say it's very good, but I say some of the content, we can do, or you can do, and you Pete and yourself. I'm not going to sell myself short either, but guys like us that one day you have aspirations to kind of step up the ladder a little bit. So it's just going to create more opportunities for guys that are involved in sports and guys that are sharp that can put their point across. You got every swinging dick that can get on YouTube and make a video and talk about sports, but the guys that are truly into the sports game and kind of know what they're talking about and can talk intelligently and put a decent product out there, definitely there's a need for it. As more people want to get educated about sports gambling, this is the place to come do it. So I think definitely.
Well, we're going to make it one of these days, Big Ragoo. Mark my words. We're going to make it, baby.
Well, Pete,
don't count me out, baby.
It moves us into technology. We've talked about legalization. We're going to talk about technology now. And with Periscope and with YouTube, now you're able to cut out the middleman. And we're going to get to how that affects gambling and how I want it to affect gambling in a big way. We're going to get into that in a second. And we've touched on that already in the first 3 episodes. So some of you who've watched already the first 3 episodes, I know where I'm about to go from the gambling side of it. But what do you think, Pete, about now with Periscope and YouTube, that with the content creator is empowered more than ever right now?
Yeah. Anytime there's a gold rush, there's going to be, a lot of people thinking that they're going to be the ones to discover the main load. I have no idea. I think it's clearly there's going to be a lot more content that's going to be created. How many winners and how many losers there will be, I have no idea. Haven't done the market research, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Okay, well, let's make this move into a spot that I've wanted to talk about with you guys badly. And so we can take out the middleman in content creation. Take them out. Why can't we start doing that with our gambling? So if I like the Niners to cover -4.5 on Sunday, and sports gambling is legal, why can't I go on to a site where somebody else likes the Seahawks at +4.5? And why can't I make that bet directly with him? And why can't I shop around and see, some idiot is hanging the Seahawks at +4. What? Look, there's this guy with +3.5. Why can't I shop around? Why can't we take the bookie out of it and have a site where we do peer-to-peer gambling, and we'll have a company that just handles the financial transaction like a credit card? They take 2 or 3%. Now there's no longer 10% juice. Now the juice is 2 or 3%. So let me pose that question to you, Peter, in a better format. Is the future of sports gambling going online, placing bets against other individuals, peer-to-peer betting?
Well, that's an extremely interesting question. It's also a lot more complicated than it might seem at first. And there are people who are experts on it. I'm no expert on it, but I do know a bit about it. You're basically talking about exchanges. And of course, exchanges have been around, for a long time. Betfair, I forgot when Betfair in the UK was, I think it was 1999 when Betfair was created. And the fact is that exchanges haven't really taken, sports betting hasn't really taken to exchanges the way a lot of people sort of assume that it would and hope. Because, you're right. It does seem so obvious. It's like, well, my jerk-off friend here likes the Seahawks -8. I like the Packers +8. Why do we got to go to a book? Why don't we just bet with each other and let's get everyone who likes to bet together and put them on an exchange, and then everything will be great. But there's a reason for it. The reason is that in order to have an exchange, you have to have liquidity. You have to have good liquidity. You have to have market makers, and it's extremely risky to be a market maker in any exchange, and especially when it comes to sports betting, because of course, if you put up a line, you're much more likely to get your offer matched if you're on the wrong side ultimately, based on the closing line, than if you're on the right side. So exchanges really have to incentivize market makers in order to have an exchange that works. And, they've been messing around with various techniques in the sports betting world for years. Matchbook officially didn't seed their markets, but, the rumors were that they did. And in the end, it's just more profitable for a book to to have a sports book and book the bets themselves than to actually operate an exchange. And that's why a few years ago, Betfair realized that, and they started their own sports book. They kind of, admitted defeat, and they would try to push their customers, players on the exchange, into their sports book because it was just a lot more profitable. And the reason is that it's just hard to have liquidity. Hard to have good liquidity in a sports betting exchange. Obviously, for massive events like the Super Bowl or something, or probably NFL games, it's not as big of a deal. But even there, it still does matter. It comes into play. And then also with like derivatives and parlays and all that stuff becomes very difficult. You can't really offer that efficiently on an exchange. And sports bettors in general, as a group, or recreational sports bettors at least, just aren't as price sensitive as you would think, as people might assume that they would be, which does kind of make sense. I mean, if you really are a recreational bettor and you're betting, whatever, $10 a game or even $50 a game, a few extra cents in the line, doesn't mean that much. It's not that much actual money, and so ultimately, there's just not as price sensitive as you would think, and so exchanges do work, but they don't thrive in the way that that you might think at first glance that they would or that they should. And and there's a reason why Betfair why exchanges in general didn't just take over the entire market in the UK. And I don't think that's going to happen in the United States either, as much as people will continue to try, for sure.
Well, expand on the liquidity issue.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, you have to, if you go to a sports book, right, you can bet anything, right? I, love to bet Nicaraguan basketball, right? Any sports book that offers it, I can go there and make a limit bet. And when they move the line, I can hit the limit again, But if you go to an exchange, you look at Korean baseball, you go to, Betfair right now, and you look at their odds. A lot of people I know, a lot of low baggers are killing Korean baseball. Congratulations. And, if you look at the liquidity right now for Korean baseball, it's just not that big. I'm not going to do it, but I have looked at it. I have glanced at it. Whereas with the sports book, you're paying for the privilege of being able to bet as much as you want on those Korean baseball games, and liquidity is just not going to come automatically for those smaller markets unless you somehow radically incentivize market makers, which you should, but then that's expensive. And then the margins become just very, very thin. And, Matchbook is working on a 2% commission, and that's just not really sustainable. And, Betfair would have, I think they had a 5% commission or whatever it was. I don't exactly remember. But, you need liquidity. Otherwise, there's no market. And to do that, you have to incentivize market makers. And people just don't realize how risky it is to be an actual market maker. It's because of what I just explained. If you make a market, right, and you offer both sides of a line, you are putting, maybe, and the line doesn't move for 2 hours, probably both sides will get matched, and then you've got a nice little a situation there. But in general, you're much more likely to have your quote unquote bad sides matched than your good sides, and that's the risk you take, and that has to be incentivized by any exchange that wants to have serious liquidity. And it's just very hard to have liquidity in an exchange that rivals what a sports book can offer to appeal to a recreational bettor.
Wow,
I don't know if I explained that well.
No,
that was a mouthful, man.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Did that make sense, though? Did that make sense? You know what I mean? Yeah. And like I used to do it for myself. Because I'm not with huge amounts. I would just, back in, years ago when Matchbook was starting up and everything, just as an experiment, I would, experiment around with market making just to see what it was like. And, that constantly would happen to me. I would constantly, put up a market. And I mean, most of the people who make those markets, it's automated, but still it's that takes a lot of time as well. You have to take a lot of time and a lot of know-how to be, to have your betting bots, your market making bots. And all right, so go on. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's great. I love this. Ragoo, jump in. What do you think of this? Because last episode, I believe it was the last episode. It was, we talked about wanting to create a situation where, like poker players get to bet against each other, get to put up $10,000, multitude of things happen when you do that. You can create superstars. You can answer questions like, who is the best NHL capper? Well, last year, you know who the top 10 were in a high level playing field where people each put up $10,000. And something I've been trying to discuss over and over and over again is, how do we take the juice out? How do we eliminate the bookies? And I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to keep talking about it as much as possible until we've got some sort of situation where we've eliminated them.
But you forget, not to cut you off, but you forget the bookies are providing an extremely valuable service. You know what I mean? And they need to be aware of that. I mean, they'll let you, and forget about parlays and derivatives. You can go in there and you know that you can bet anything you want up to their limits, and that's a valuable service. So to say that you want to eliminate them is, I don't know, you have to replace that service somehow if you want it, you know?
Yeah, like a credit card company, to be able to have enough money to take 3% or something of that kind, or if it's just a competition, if it's just a contest, then the $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever level you feel you are as a capper, because I would it would be the most exciting thing in my entire life to put up $10,000 for next hockey season and go up against other people who believe in themselves enough to put up $10,000, and then I don't need to bet again until I think I've lost. Then I can go up against the best of the best and see how good I am. And so, we've been talking about that, and Ragoo, jump in. I can't wait to hear what you think about this.
All right. So my knowledge of markets is not that extensive like Pete, but just try to keep things in layman's terms. Like when you talk about like a contest, okay, so those contests are put together, and then there's some of the contests when they first start out, they're just basically like promotional. So they're very limited as far as the takeout goes on the fees. But then you have so I'm thinking it's a combination of these three things. Let's say a pari-mutuel, a poker site, and a contest. Okay, so I don't know how the markets work with the bet markets, for their percentages, but basically all you would need is someone to monitor, to put together numbers, for the contest or for whatever the markets would be. And then you'd be competing either like fantasy style, like head to head, like I do in the horse racing, or, like the horse racing sites do. They pool the money and they're pretty much set up like the poker sites. So you talk about going one-on-one with an individual or as a group. And then, whatever the takeout would be paid based on percentages. Let's say it's a 10% rake for the site. You could do it that way. Just thinking out loud now. Then whatever, whatever their operational costs, they have to, like Pete was saying, they have to make a profit. So that's the thing. I don't know, just on the surface, I would say you would think with the way horse racing set up, poker set up, and contests are set up, there has to be a way to incorporate sports in that model somehow. Maybe it could be very limited in the very beginning, and they could figure out how the numbers are going and whether the business models will work based on volume. So I would think there should be a way to put something like that together. But then you have the issue is, because of the way the sports betting legalities are put together, like horse racing is different, because horse racing, you could bet from state to state across state lines. Sports is a little bit different. So that's going to take that portion out of it, unless it's an offshore type site.
Yeah, very, very interesting topic.
Yeah, I mean, just one other thing. I don't follow poker that much, but I know that the people who are strategizing for their business plans for exchanges looked at what happened with poker as a cautionary tale of what they wanted to avoid. Poker was seen as something that drained money from the system when they added it in the mid 2000s, around 2005 or whatever. So it's copying poker is the poker model is the last thing that exchanges won't want to do.
But
so
exactly.
now, let me ask you a question.
I'm sorry.
So with the exchanges, now are they working their monies that are coming in? Are these exchanges, are they going after the books? Or are they competition with like individuals playing against each other? Or are you just going against the exchange when you're betting?
What do you mean?
the number. You're betting against the number, basically, right? But I think Jimmy was just trying to say we need to get rid of, not to cut the book. He's basically saying cut the bookie out, but you don't see a model one day coming across where, like, let's say us three, we want to see who the best baseball capper is, and we pony up X amount of dollars, and we can go like a week to week. We can go, let's say, monthly. We can go, a series.
Sure.
You can break it down to that type of thing. You don't see something like that on the horizon, possibly.
I mean, that's and that's probably and you might have something like that where like like I said before, an advertiser is sponsoring something like that, so people who set something like that up might then get maybe a little bonus where there's the entire pool is bigger than what people put in. Sure, absolutely, that could happen. That's not like betting on an individual game though. Going up against one other person betting on an individual game. But yeah, absolutely. Derivative models based on the sports betting market. Yeah, absolutely. That are focused on the recreational player. Sure, that stuff probably will happen. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the poker idea, as Bago says, it's not good for the house. Exactly. That's what we want to create, is something that's not good for the house. And Pete, we did an episode, our first episode, can you be a professional sports bettor? And I don't mean to simplify everything that we did, but the answer was basically no. And why was it no? It was because of the juice, the bookie. You talk about the bookie giving you this service, which is what they're doing. And what happens when you start beating the bookie? They shut you down. They're not going to let you do it. So
not all of them.
You get shut down.
Yeah, most of them will. Recreational books will, but the books that cater to professional players that originate lines, they will essentially allow you to beat them in exchange for their ability to offer the sharpest lines in the market and to open early and to have their limits be as high as they can make them. So I would say that the answer to that question is can you be a professional bettor is not no. It's not a hard no.
No, I agree.
It's an extremely likely no, but not 100% guaranteed no. I mean, there are people who make money betting. There always have been betting sports. There always have been, and there certainly are now. And probably there always will be, although that's not a guarantee.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle for somebody who's trying to be a professional sport or to?
I mean, the biggest obstacle I would say is lack of intelligence. Right? I don't know. Right? Second biggest obstacle would be lack of discipline. Third biggest obstacle would be lack of bankroll. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a tough market, and it's a negative sum market from the perspective of the bettor, a zero sum market overall in general, and the lines are very sharp, and quote unquote dumb money gets eliminated quickly. Although it does tend to there's a slow and steady infusion of new dumb money, or at least so far there has been. So I mean every professional bettor that I have ever known, and I've known some, they all, and these are guys who have won a lot of money for a bunch of years in a row, to a man. All of them say, I have no idea if I'm going to have an edge in 5 years. All of them. None of them are like, yeah, I've made this much money over the past, 10 or 15 years. So probably in 5 years, I'm still making money. They all say, I have no idea if I'm going to have an edge in, 3 years or 5 years or something. But up till now, there definitely have been people who have legitimately made money as sports bettors. Yes.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And, we read articles on a few of them, because
sure,
there are only a few that kind of want to come out into the media. A lot of them don't. When you look at a guy like Spanky, his excuses for not wanting to sell picks or anything like that are because he doesn't want people to see what his method is, and
to reverse engineer.
Yeah.
I'm not even that good of a handicapper, and I'm afraid of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I feel you.
I don't want people to reverse engineer my friggin' Nicaragua basketball edge.
Okay, so Paco Healy brings up a point that we've spoken about through this series, and I'll pop it up on the screen. He says the extra draw on revenue the poker benefits from is the media coverage.
Right. And that's what I was saying before. That's like sort of the dark horse in this is it's not clear how much mainstream advertising money might get pumped into the whole thing, which would be, that's a wild card. And it's entirely possible that it'll become so popular and so, accepted that, that a lot of mainstream advertising and marketing money will go into it. And that would be great. That would mean that for the first time in a long time, the market isn't being sustained exclusively by player losses,
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great. That's certainly possible. Yes.
Like if ESPN said, we're putting up $1 million for a NBA handicapping contest, and it's $10,000 entries, but we're going to put up $1 million on top of it, and then started doing a show once a week, showing what moves people were making. I don't see how that doesn't blow up. I don't see how that doesn't get viewers. I don't see how that isn't a big score for ESPN. A big Ragoo, how do we make sports handicapping superstars like they've done in poker?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the $64 million question there.
Well, because we have guys on ESPN giving out sports picks. They have no right to be there.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's bullshit.
That's what I was saying. Like through the content providers, like yourself, Petey, everybody else. These are the guys that are kind of the grassroots of the industry, and there's nobody really on national TV or syndicated television. They might have one or two here and there that are guys that are they're just kind of weaseling their way in from our side of the world that are starting to get some mainstay. Some of these guys are not as good than people that we know, but they're still better than the clowns that they got on TV on Sunday afternoons that are giving their plays out. But to answer your question, that's probably going to be developed over time, and then any types of programs that might come, like the big thing is the super contest. Okay, now many moons ago, that contest housed about 500-600 people for a long time, and then once ESPN got wind of it, and they got somebody in the contest from their channel, then all of a sudden they got up to 3,500 people. So that thing is taken off. So like Pete was saying, the added benefit is the advertising coming in with the poker, and then getting national recognition and drawing a general interest in the product, and that's how they become not overnight success, but how it gets promoted out, and people get familiarized with it.
If you're asking how do we create sports betting superstars like the poker superstars, I have some good ideas. No one wants to talk to me, but I've got some good ideas. I think I know how to do it, or at least few ways.
What are they?
I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to shout them out right here.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I got you.
But I've definitely thought of that many times and thought of some shit, for real.
Yeah. You're getting a lot of love from for your blazer, Pete.
You know where I got this blazer? About 15 or about 20 years ago. I don't even remember when it was. About 15 or 20 years ago. A guy now who is very high up in live betting. I was friends with him for a long time. He lived on the Upper East Side, and his building had a fire. And at that time, I was his friend, and and he was like, you can just go in and whatever you want, you can take. So I went into his apartment, and this was one of the things I took. That is a 100% true story. 100% true. That's where I got this jacket.
It looks good on you.
Thanks, man. You ask questions, you get the answer.
Hey, one time I lived on 72nd and First Avenue many moons ago for a couple summers with my uncle up there.
72nd and First?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Upper East Side.
Oh, the Upper East Side was underrated all those years ago.
Yeah.
But we're getting off course here.
If I could put $10,000 into an NHL contest because the NHL usually starts on my birthday, October 4th. If I could go into a $10,000 pool, and anybody else who puts up $10,000 obviously thinks that they're top NHL handicapper, how many people, if it was a big enough thing, if it was known that this was happening, How many people do you think will put up $10,000 in that contest in around the world? What would be your guess there, Pete? How many
Oh
cap?
man, I have no idea. You're asking me how many people overestimate their NHL handicapping ability in the world? I don't know. I know a few guys. Who would definitely enter, and you would not want to be in the same contest as those guys. But contests like that should pay down. Not to just the top 10. They should pay at least.
Yeah. There could be a ton of payouts for sure.
I couldn't even estimate how many people think that it would be a good idea to pony up $10,000 and enter an NHL handicapping contest. I have no idea.
It would make, talk about, like, I'm betting, well, we'd be betting it all, but the $200 is my unit size in NHL. But if I could just forego $200 for the swings that I've had and just put $10,000 in October 4th and go in the most important competition of my entire life.
Oh, I would stake you. I would try to buy a piece of that action for sure.
It would, but it would be the most important thing I've ever done. And now you start looking at it, you're like, what? You mean a $10,000 thing would be the most important thing you've ever done? Yeah. It would be the most important thing I've ever done in my life, and there would be nothing I would care more than that contest. And I just think that's the most exciting shit I could, like, just right. My palms start leaking.
I was under the impression and I might be totally wrong here, but I was under the impression that in general, NHL was considered to be a relatively sharp market. That a higher majority than normal of NHL money comes from sharp outfits. But that might be wrong. But that was my impression.
I think you're right. And speaking of sharp markets, the first year we worked together, I got up to a high of 42 or 43 units.
Oh, you were killing it.
But when that season was said and done, you were ahead of me.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Now we're off topic, but yeah, I was so bad at NHL regular season, I just skipped it. I would come in the playoffs and just do it. I didn't even follow it or bet it. And then in our shows, all of a sudden, I was up 20, 25 units every year.
I know why. And we've seen, and let's get Ragoo to jump in a second, but I know why, and we've seen that with Ski Profit and horse gambling. He's never capped horses in his life. But Pete, you're a smart bettor.
Yes.
It's one thing to be a knowledgeable handicapper. It's a totally other thing to be a smart bettor, and you proved that first season of NHL. And don't think I didn't think about that for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Pete beat me at the end of the year. But I think I'm the best, or, it's my best sport. Let me leave it at that. I think I'm really good at capping NHL, but Pete beat me because he's smarter, better. What am I doing wrong? And I still think about it. I still think, what am I doing wrong?
Well, that's an important thing. I mean, even on Wall Street, the people who actually invest the money and the people who do the research and the analysis, those are two separate disciplines. You are not expected to be the person who does, the research and the person who actually manages the money. Just because they're separate disciplines, separate talents. Some people are good at both, but it's kind of like home runs and stealing bases. Some people do both, but a lot of people only do one, and it doesn't mean that one is less valuable than the other. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, you have to when it comes down to it, we talk about this all the time. It doesn't matter how good of an analyst you are at a sport, how much you genuinely know what's going on, how much you genuinely know the relative value of all the factors. If you don't understand basic betting principles, you'll lose anyway. Absolutely, that's no question. And it's not because you were wrong in your analysis; it's that you just missed the second part. It's like it's kind of like if you'll never be a good chef if you don't know how to turn on an oven. No matter, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, you can cut everything up, but you have to do everything. It involves cutting the food, turning on the oven, putting it in the refrigerator, whatever you got to do. And betting is understanding the sport and even assessing the various factors accurately. That's just part one. That's just part one, baby.
Well, I can't wait till Ragoo jumps in here, especially for my sports betting place, because what happened to me when I was in my 20s is I'd go to the horse track with some friends. We'd be taking it seriously, but they didn't know thoroughbred handicapping, but they were trying. They weren't just there to drink; they were going to try to win. And then I would break down each race. So I'd go race by, and I'd break down each horse with them at the table. Break down each horse, and then we'd all go bet. And other people at the table would have better days than me, and they didn't know anything about horses. And it was because they were betting smarter than I was, and it would keep me up at night. Ragoo, what do you think of that dichotomy?
I would call it the efficiency factor, like what your models are and how you're going to get your ROI. And not all the variables come into play at the same time that way, but you have good days, you have bad days. But over the long haul, like we always say, right, you just got to play the percentages that are going to work in your favor. And I think if you find something that you're really good at, you should just stay right there and not try to, spread your wings to try to encompass the whole experience. So it's a matter, and it's the old adage, discipline, money management, all that stuff. Yeah, you can be the best handicapper, but you could be a terrible bettor. You could be a terrible handicapper, but a good bettor. So I'm not going to say there's any one way to really do it the right way, but they all have to kind of come together in some form or fashion. I think that's the efficiency of gambling. You just have to know, where your lane is, stay in it. And then if a model works, just like Ski, like he's a great basketball capper. He's good at that. Pete knows, he knows his baskesketball that he's tuned in with right now. So why would you look at anything else when you have a model that works and just profit on that model? Just stay in your lane and just know what you're doing.
Well, Pete's most impressive thing to all of us was baseball. And it's just that
Totals.
For me, the 162 game season just beats the shit out of me. Now, I came down to Costa Rica ignorant, and I didn't understand the complexities of the sport, even though I love the sport so much. And I didn't fully understand. And when we were capping all different sports, I was unable to spend the 45 minutes probably minimum you need for each baseball game to truly understand which pitchers have been lucky and which pitchers are about to regress. And I thought that was probably the biggest angle that I was missing, but I simply, because of the other sports we were covering, I felt like I didn't have the time. And when I was, doing baseball last year, we were, all of us, even when we were talking about each game, we were longing for Pete's take.
Really?
On the games, yeah.
I had my best baseball season ever this past year, and it was really weird. And I'll tell you this: baseball is a fucked up sport. I'll tell you that. It's a weird ass sport. This past year, I don't know. And I talked to some other people, and they were experiencing the same thing. I obviously, you have to track your picks against the closing line. And this past year, I had a great baseball season, mostly because I was just focusing only on that, no pressure, no anything. And the plays that I made, it was a big sample size. I had about an equal amount of plays. One group of plays beat the closing line by a mile. Those plays overall were only slightly positive. They were positive, only slightly positive. Then I had another group of plays about the same size that where I did beat the closing line, but by a lot less. And those plays were more positive than the others. And then I had a third group of plays where I didn't beat the closing line, and those plays were by far my most profitable out of all of them. Now, it could have been just variance or randomness or whatever, but it was a pretty big sample size. And I did speak to some other people who model baseball, and they were sort of agreeing with a lot of the things that were sort of having me scratching my head. I don't know what the hell the future of baseball is going to hold, but I know this last year was really weird. There's something weird going on, and I don't know what it was. And it might have just been who knows, just an extreme outlier. But it's fun as hell.
when baseball comes back, there's many of us that are hoping that we can have a show together, Pete, on Saturdays.
But that's going to be even crazier because it's all going to be in like Arizona and all these stadiums that people don't know about and with no fans. That's going to be, those are like serious factors.
You think that's going to be a baseball purist sport when they're just playing with no fans and just them, bat a piece of wood and a ball and a bunch of noise in the background, with just the players. It's like a big practice.
I have
like
no idea.
Without the racism.
It's going to be weird as hell. I'll tell you that. A baseball season only in stadiums in Arizona or wherever with no fans. That's going to be weird as hell.
Ragoo, we're going to put a bow on this bad boy, but and I know we've kind of gotten off from the original idea of the episode, but
sorry about that. If I had anything to do with that, I apologize.
No, it's been very enjoyable. It's so great to have you back and rolling with us, Pete. Ragoo, what is your best sport to cap and why?
They say it's the toughest sport to cap, but for me, I got a passion for it, and I've always done pretty decent at it. Some years better than others, just like anything else. But NFL football is probably my best sport, even though I'm known to cap some decent college games. But NFL, I've just been doing it for a while. I know, the players change and the models change and whatnot, but just I like a sport that I can get down on some plus money and some minus 110 numbers. I don't like to be all over the place with the even though the hockey and baseball are set up very similar with the puck line and the run lines and whatnot, but just
oh shit!
Quick freeze!
Oh no!
From our Ragoo, we'll get
The authorities are hacking Ragoo.
We'll get him back in here in a second. We'll get him back in here in a second.
Fucking never fails.
No, there you go.
But anyways, I'm usually like in the the mid to high 50s every year in NFL. So, and I've been tracking that for at least the last 10 years. Now I want to say professionally, but like when I really started keeping track of what I've had going on. So I was in a super contest a few times, never cashed out, but in those 2 years I was like at 56 and 57% and like 71% won it 1 year, and I think like high 60s the year prior to that. And that was probably about 10. Well, no, the super contest was like 4 years ago and 3 years ago. So NFL is my sport.
Pete, talking about Ragoo with NFL, Gas Station Sushi, who we've all fallen head over heels in love with, is he stopped betting NFL because he's like, look, the books make 90% of their profits on NFL. Why would I bet it? What do you think of that idea?
Well, I mean, it's people assume that that if a market, the more money a market has, the sharper it is, which is really not true. We've talked about this before on other shows we've done, Jimmy the Bag, and going back years. The Super Bowl obviously has massive amounts of money coming in, and the Super Bowl is admitted to be the one. One event where public money has more effect than any other sport and can overwhelm sharp money because there's so much money coming in, and the books have to respect that at a certain volume. So, the idea that more people bet on NFL than anything else, or the books make more of their money on the NFL than anything else, equals that market has the sharpest lines. Is I don't think it's true. I mean, if you have good reason to believe that you have an edge, and that it's very easy to lie to yourself, so you got to be careful. But if you have good reason to believe that you have an edge, you shouldn't worry too much about who else is betting it or not betting it, or what books, how the books are handling it. I mean, it's always important to be aware of, because you always want to keep in mind, like, well, if I have this edge, then why is all this other stuff going on? And you don't have to answer it, but it's nice to be able to. But yeah, I in my experience in the NFL, obviously the in general the lines are very sharp, but there are definitely, going back years, there's always a handful of games every year where I feel, very, very confident that the line is significantly off. Even this past year when I wasn't following it very closely, there was one. I think it was a home game. It was the Ravens against maybe the Pats. I think the Ravens were like a 2-point home dog against the Pats or something. I can't remember what game it was. But, I mean, I think that, if you personally don't feel confident or comfortable in your NFL handicapping or any other sport, then definitely don't do it. But just because the books make a lot of money on that particular sport doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have an edge on it. And the Super Bowl is a classic example. Books make a ton of money on the Super Bowl, but so do the sharps. Betting the props and even the main side and total are often more influenced by public money than sharp money. So. Yeah.
The spots where I think I have a significant edge are so few and far between, and I want action. I want to bet. Last year for me, I remember the game for sure. It was the biggest. It was when Dalton had been sat for 3 games or 4 games, and then he comes back, and I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
this line is so off.
I mean, let me put it to you this way. Yeah.
Here.
Let me put it to you this way. You say that the books make all their money on NFL. Which is obviously true. Not compared to soccer, but yeah. And so maybe you would look at something like years ago, like WNBA. They don't make that much on WNBA. For many years, it was pretty much only sharps who were betting into WNBA. So just because a market is smaller, in fact, if a market is smaller, it's probably more likely that the money, that there's a higher percentage of sharp money betting into it than the NFL. The books make all their money on the NFL because so much, quote unquote, public money comes in on it. So that's a market that you want to be betting into, right? The only way you're really going to make money is if you're betting into a market with, is if you're beating public money, and so a market with more public money is, going to have more money to for you to beat.
Case in point, $500 on a WNBA versus $100,000 on an NFL game.
Or like I remember another perfect example. This was years ago. AFL. I knew some sharp guys who would kill the AFL, and they were so sharp they would put down a bet and the line would move 10 points. I mean, it was ridiculous. And that was just a market that the books weren't making any money on, but it was all sharps betting into that market. So it doesn't mean that you would have a better chance of having an edge in that market than the NFL.
What an absolute treat. An honor it is to roll with you two guys. Loshak, Big Ragoo, man, I'm so thankful to roll with you guys. Now that we have the software, there's going to be more Lodals Loshak coming your way and ours. Big shout out to the cappers in the chat. I'll give them all a shout out right when we put a bow on this. But Big Ragoo, my friend, it's interesting that you went NFL because I know that you're extremely trusted in your NFL action, but I was thinking that you were going to go NCAA football. I was thinking that that's where you were going to go with your best sport.
Well, I have a major passion for college football, so definitely it's a high number 2. But I have to give the lean towards NFL just because it's for me it's a more, I'm not going to say predictable product, but my model works better there. The thing with the college, with the youngsters, you never know. You never know with the pros either, but it's just, for me, it's NFL. And as much as I love college football and love waking up, early, getting those early numbers when they come out and then trying to beat that number right before game time, taking a dog, I love dogs in college football. College football, my favorite bet to make actually is a money line college football play. Like when Oregon won that bowl game early and the whole country was on the other side, and we did the show during the bowl season. He said, how do you break it down? And I broke it down, and it played out exactly like I thought. There's no better feeling in the world than cashing a money line dog when you break a game down like that.
I feel you. I mean, when we're talking about horses, like I when by my standards won that race convincingly and easily at 9-2, and I singled him on all my action. I was like, oh God, I don't know if there could possibly be a better feeling than that shit. Ragoo, my friend, you have any last words and shout outs to the great cappers in the chat and those watching?
Yeah, just thanking Pete for showing up. It's good to see you finally.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Man, it was a pleasure, and then always a pleasure to see you, my friend, and looking forward to another episode down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, man, you're so beloved and so missed.
Huge shout out to everyone. Happy birthday to everyone.
All your birthday pics, man.
Happy birthday to everyone.
Oh,
dude, my birthday pics are killing it still. I like have a lot. I gave Dan Kelly a birthday pic, Chris Comatini a birthday pic, Nut Flush Allen a birthday pic. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it when when I was on my own. I was like, no, look, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's something that Pete was magical with. I'm not gonna try to recreate that kind of glory. Pete, what a treat it is to roll with you guys. But we have nothing without these great cappers in the chat. Carlos Peroge, Connor McLaughlin, Mr. Ghost, the Prince of the City, Paco Healy, Cash Action Bets, Spencer Penny G, Ick Schnizzle, Dennis Garcia, Sun Dizzle, at Young Chillionaire, Mike Sanders. Thank you guys so much. Jordan Kane. What a great group, man. We got nothing without your insights. Predictions guy, Walter Scott, Mississippi Kid. Thank you guys. And on behalf of the Big Ragoo and Pistol Pete Loshak and everybody at odds.com. Thank you guys for watching. Episode 4 in the books. And we have a huge week ahead of us, and things are starting to come back. Things are starting to come back, and sports are starting to come back. And I know this has been a very trying times for all of us. But, I mean, if we can make it through this, what can't we make it through? On behalf of all of us, keep cashing. Get that cash. Leche. Hey, those bookmakers!